Rain streaked down the apartment window as Alex packed his last belongings into cardboard boxes. The sound echoed through empty rooms like a funeral march. 3 years of marriage, 7 years of building a business, 15 years of friendship, all gone in 2 devastating months. His wife had taken the house. His business partner had taken the company. His friends had taken sides. They had taken everything from him, except one thing: his memory. Alex remembered every contract, every client relationship, every strategic decision that had built their empire. They thought they had erased him, but they had only freed him. He didn't know it yet, but losing everything would be the best thing that ever happened to him. The divorce papers lay scattered across the kitchen table like debris from an explosion. Lisa had been thorough: the house, the cars, half the business assets, even furniture he'd bought before marriage. Her lawyer painted Alex as an absent workaholic who contributed nothing. The irony was bitter. Alex had worked 16-hour days to build the wealth Lisa now claimed. Every late night, every missed dinner, every weekend spent on strategy had been investments in their future. Now that future belonged to someone else. His phone buzzed. A text from David, his former business partner. "Alex, I know things are complicated, but we need you to sign the final transfer documents for the client accounts." "The lawyers are waiting." Alex stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in his chest. David was asking him to formally hand over relationships Alex had built from nothing. Clients who trusted Alex personally, contracts Alex had negotiated, strategies Alex had developed. "I'll review them tomorrow," Alex typed back. But there would be no tomorrow for David's version of their business. That evening, Alex sat in his empty apartment surrounded by boxes. No furniture Lisa had taken at all. No artwork that belonged to her too. Just Alex, a laptop, and 15 years of industry knowledge that no court could transfer to someone else. He opened his computer and began making a list. Every client he had brought to the firm. Every relationship he had cultivated. Every strategy he had developed. The intellectual foundation of everything David thought he now owned. Then something clicked in his mind. David might have the business name and office lease, but Alex had something infinitely more valuable and dangerous. He knew which clients were unhappy with recent service, which contracts were about to expire and needed renegotiation, which strategies were failing but hadn't been addressed, which employees were considering leaving. He knew the weaknesses David didn't even realize existed in his stolen empire. The next morning brought a call that would change everything. Jessica Chun, their biggest client and most profitable account. "Alex, I'm confused about something important. David said you're no longer with the firm, but our contract specifically names you as the primary consultant. How does this work moving forward?" Alex smiled for the first time in weeks. "That's correct, Jessica. I'm no longer with Morrison and Partners. Then who's handling our account?" "David mentioned he would be taking over personally." "I am, but not through Morrison and Partners anymore." "I don't understand." "Could you explain?" "I'm starting my own firm, Jessica. Morrison and Partners will need to transfer your contract to Chun Holdings directly, or you can terminate your agreement with them and contract with me personally." Silence stretched across the phone line. "Then, is that legally possible? Read your contract, Jessica. Specifically Clause 12. You contracted with Alex Morrison for strategic consulting services. The firm was just the vehicle for delivering those services." That afternoon, Alex received a panicked call from David. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "What exactly did you say to Jessica Chun?" "She's demanding to terminate our contract and work with you directly. She's threatening legal action if we don't release her immediately. I told her the truth about our business relationship. Alex, we had an agreement when we dissolved the partnership. You can't just steal our clients like this." "Your clients?" "Jessica Chun hired me personally 3 years before I brought her account to the firm. Check the original contract signature, David. It's my name on every document." David's silence told Alex everything he needed to know. David had never bothered to read the original client agreements. He'd assumed that owning the business name meant owning the relationships that powered it. He was about to learn how wrong that assumption was. By the end of the week, Alex had received calls from 7 major clients, all asking the same crucial question: could they work with Alex directly instead of through Morrison and Partners? The answer was always yes. And Alex's new consulting firm had 7 clients before it even officially existed. Lisa called on Friday evening, her voice tight with anger and barely concealed panic. David told me you're trying to destroy the business deliberately. That's my money too, Alex. Half of that business belongs to me. I'm starting my own business. Lisa, that's perfectly legal. You're stealing clients that belong to Morrison and Partners. I'm fulfilling existing contracts with clients who prefer to work with me directly. The clients are making their own choices about who they trust. This isn't what we agreed on during the divorce proceedings. Alex almost laughed at the irony. We agreed on divorce, Lisa. We agreed on asset division. We didn't agree on me disappearing quietly while you and David split the empire I spent 15 years building. The business was ours together. I supported you while you built it. Did you? When did you last attend a client meeting? When did you last review a strategic proposal? When did you last work past 6 p.m. or sacrifice a weekend for business development? Lisa had no answer because there was no answer. The business had been Alex's life while Lisa lived her own separate existence. Now she wanted the rewards without having made any of the sacrifices. That weekend, Alex did something he hadn't done in years. He went to the office. Not his old office. David had changed the locks and security codes within days of the partnership dissolution. Alex's new office was a small space in a downtown building. No mahogany desk, no corner view, no expensive artwork to impress clients. Just Alex, a phone, and the knowledge of how to build something valuable from absolutely nothing. Monday brought the first official meeting with Chun Holdings. Jessica sat across from Alex in his modest conference room, studying his face carefully. Alex, I have to ask directly, is this going to create problems for our business relationship? Working with you instead of Morrison and Partners? Jessica, who developed your expansion strategy for the Asian markets last year. You did. Who negotiated the Yamamoto partnership that saved you $4 million? You? Who handles your crisis management and strategic planning? You. Alex leaned back in his chair. Then nothing has changed except the name on the letterhead and the quality of service you'll receive. By month 3, Alex had 12 clients. All former Morrison and Partners accounts. All choosing to work with him directly because they valued relationships over corporate branding. David was learning a painful and expensive lesson. You can steal a business name, but you can't steal expertise, relationships, or reputation. Lisa's lawyer called with a desperate settlement offer. She was willing to reduce her claim on the business assets in exchange for a percentage of Alex's new firm. Alex's response was immediate and final. No. No to which part of the offer? No to all of it. Lisa has no claim on my new business. She chose the old business in the divorce. She can keep whatever's left of it. Alex, his lawyer warned, she could make this very difficult for you legally. Let her try. She discovered that fighting someone who has nothing left to lose is a very expensive mistake. The turning point came in month 6. Morrison and Partners lost their 3 largest clients in 1 week. All to Alex's new firm, Morrison Strategic. David showed up at Alex's office, looking desperate and defeated. Alex, we need to talk about this situation. Do we? This vendetta has to stop. You're systematically destroying the company we built together. Alex looked at David carefully. We didn't build it together, David. I built it. You managed the paperwork. That's not fair to say. Fair? You stole my business while I was going through a divorce and couldn't defend myself. You changed the locks on the office I paid for. You tried to take credit for relationships I spent years developing. David's face reddened. We were equal partners in everything. Partners don't steal from each other when one is vulnerable. What do you want, Alex? Money? Equity back in the firm? We can work something out. I want nothing from you. David, I want to forget you ever existed. By year 2, Morrison Strategic had 28 employees and offices in 3 cities. Alex's revenue exceeded what Morrison and Partners had ever achieved at its peak. He hired the best people from his old firm, not by stealing them, but by offering them what David never would: respect, fair compensation, and clear growth paths. David's firm struggled without Alex's strategic vision and client relationships. Morrison and Partners became just another consulting company in a crowded market. Lisa's settlement money ran out faster than expected. The house she'd fought so hard to keep was too expensive to maintain without Alex's income. She sold it and moved into a small apartment. Alex bought a larger house. Not to show off, but because he could afford it through his own work. The final victory came unexpectedly. A call from Reynolds Corporation, the largest client Morrison and Partners had ever failed to win. "Mr. Morrison, we understand you're taking on new clients. We'd like to discuss a very substantial consulting contract," Alex smiled. Reynolds had been David's white whale for 5 years. The client they'd pitched to unsuccessfully dozens of times. "I'd be happy to discuss that. But I should mention my firm has a strict policy about client relationships. We only work with companies that value long-term strategic partnerships." That's exactly what we're looking for. The Reynolds contract was worth more than Alex's old firm's entire annual revenue. 3 years after losing everything, Alex sat in his corner office overlooking the city. The same city where he'd once packed boxes in an empty apartment. His assistant knocked softly. "Mr. Morrison, there's a David Chun here to see you." "He says he's from Morrison and Partners?" Alex almost said no, then curiosity won. David looked older, tired. The confidence was gone. "Alex, I wanted to apologize. For everything. I made terrible mistakes. You made choices, David. I know. And I've learned from them." Alex studied his former partner. "What do you want?" "Morrison and Partners is failing. We lost the Henderson account this week. That was our last major client. I was wondering if there might be room at your firm for someone with my experience." For a moment, Alex felt the old instinct to help, to offer David a lifeline. Then he remembered the betrayal. "No, David, there isn't." After David left, Alex returned to his window. The city sprawled below him, full of people making choices about loyalty, betrayal, and consequences. Somewhere in those countless buildings, other versions of his former self were probably trusting the wrong people, building empires for others to steal, believing that loyalty would be rewarded with loyalty. 4 years later, Alex received an unexpected invitation. Morrison and Partners was dissolving completely. David was liquidating the remaining assets and closing the doors permanently. Lisa had called twice in recent months, asking if they could talk about the past and work things out. Alex had declined both times politely but firmly. The past was over. His future was just beginning, and it had no room for people who had shown their true nature when he was vulnerable. Standing in his expanded office suite, watching his team of 43 consultants work on projects across 6 countries, Alex realized something profound about human nature and business. They thought they had destroyed him by taking his external possessions. Instead, they had freed him from everything that was holding him back from his true potential. The business he lost had been small thinking, limited by David's vision and Lisa's demands for security over growth. The wife he lost had been dead weight, someone who consumed his success without contributing to its creation. The partner he lost had been a liability, someone who took credit without adding value. What remained after they stripped everything away was pure potential waiting to be unleashed. They had taken his company, but they couldn't take the relationships he'd built over 15 years. They had taken his house, but they couldn't take his ability to earn enough to buy a better one. They had taken his savings, but they couldn't take his knowledge of how to build wealth from nothing. Most importantly, they couldn't take his memory of every lesson learned, every mistake made, every strategy that worked, and every one that failed. And knowledge, properly applied with the wisdom that comes from betrayal, was more powerful than anything they had stolen from him. The last thing they couldn't take had become the first thing that rebuilt everything bigger and better than before. His phone buzzed with another message from Jessica Chun. "Alex, Reynolds Corporation is extremely impressed with the preliminary strategy. They want to discuss expanding the contract to include their European and Asian operations. This could be worth $50 million over 3 years." Alex smiled and typed back, "Schedule the meeting for next week, $50 million. More than Morrison and Partners had generated in its entire existence. Standing there in his corner office, watching the sunset paint the city gold, Alex understood the truth about power and resilience. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what you're truly worth when you're not carrying other people's limitations. They thought they had taken everything that mattered. They had actually taken everything that didn't matter. What remained was pure power disguised as memory. And memory, unleashed, had become unstoppable success, power.